Hi boys and girls. Today we're going to be creating some texture on a paper to use it as a background for our drawing. So I'm going to have you go on a scavenger hunt through your house and you're going to find items that are hard and maybe bumpy or just not super smooth, okay? So I have a couple things here that I've collected, like a quarter, and any kind of coin will work. I have a piece of cardboard. I think this was from an Amazon box. And then I have this wire, it's a wire shelf actually, that I found that has some texture. So texture means that you can feel something, it's either super smooth or it is bumpy or spiky. There's lots of different words to describe texture. You're not looking for a smooth texture. Instead, you're looking for some kind of a rough texture. Before you go looking in your house, I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing with it. That way you can go and find the perfect item for you so that you can create your picture today. When we're in my classroom, normally we have these texture rubbing plates, and we can set them underneath our paper. And then we use a crayon to rub across the top to show the texture. Let me show you what that looks like. So I take a crayon that does not have a wrapper on. My textured item is underneath. And then I use the side of the crayon. This is what I call a lazy crayon because he doesn't want to get up and draw like he normally would. Instead, he wants to lay down. And so you use your pinching fingers, your thumb and your pointing finger to pinch that crayon on its side and press down hard, rubbing it back and forth. Now this hand, your weak hand, has an extremely important job today to hold that paper really still. So I'm pressing down hard with my left hand while I use my crayon on my right hand to show the texture. So you get a really fun design. Now, obviously, if you're at home, you probably don't have texture rubbing plates. This is exactly what these guys were made for, to do stuff like this. So instead, we're gonna get creative and find some things around the house. So we have our quarter. I'm gonna lay it underneath, and I'm going to, remember I'm holding this hard with my hand, and then I'm rubbing across the top. Okay, I can also, that one wasn't super good because I moved my paper, so let me show you again. There we go. I'm pressing with the side of the crayon. I can also turn it over to show the other side of the quarter or whatever coin you have. So you can see a little bit of the eagle that's on the back. But this is a small item, so I would have to do this over and over to create a really interesting background for me to be able to put something on top of it. If you can only find small items, that's okay. It's just gonna take you a little bit longer to create your background. The other item I found, which was awesome, a good find. It has a bumpy texture. It's a wire rack. You need something that's hard. And if you can feel that texture under your paper, then you know it should work to create the texture. So look at that, how cool that turned out, showing the grooves in the wire. The last item that is a pretty common item is a cardboard box piece. And you can see lines going through it, and you can feel those lines creating bumps, which is how I knew that it should work for a texture rubbing. So I'm going to rub across. And I have this awesome striped pattern. So I'm gonna finish my paper by rubbing all these textures on here, filling up my whole paper. with some kind of textured pattern. I don't like how I have a bunch of empty space up here, so I could take my quarter again and then rub my crayon across the top again and fill in that space. As long as you're using your crayon on its side, it should work really well. I'm going to show you the wrong way right here. If you use the tip of the crayon, it doesn't allow for you to show that true texture of the quarter. So try not to use the tip of the crayon, only the side to do your rubbings. So now my paper has several textures. If you just found one, that's okay. You can do that across your whole paper. And now we're ready to do the next step of our project, which is going to be to create another picture to glue on top of here, because we're going to use this as a background. Our final project will end up looking something like this. Now you need your second sheet of paper so that you can start drawing your flamingo on it. Hold your paper portrait, which means the long sides are going to be on the left and right. Starting close to the top and a little bit to your right hand side, we're going to make a large oval, kind of like an egg shape. This is going to be our flamingo's main part of his head. Later on, we'll go back and add a beak. Now I need to draw the main part of his body. I'm going to make a rainbow shape starting from the edge of my paper, going up and not quite all the way to the other edge of my paper. Now I'm going to connect these two pieces with a little bit of a curve and go back to his head, and in the middle I'm going to come down following that same path of that curve. Now it looks like my flamingo is 3 separate pieces, so I need to erase the lines that make it look like it's disconnected from each other. Now we're going to add a rainbow shape for his wing. We are only going to see one wing because we are looking at him from the side. Up at the top, I'm going to give him an oval for an eye, but not too close to the end of his face because we need to add his beak or his mouth. For his beak, I'm going to create a loop around. It started out almost like the shape of a letter C, but then it goes down and looks like a snow cone or a ice cream cone. I left it a little bit rounded at the bottom. Then I'm erasing this line that was part of his head, that oval, so that it looks like his beak is connected to his oval. We want him to look like one continuous piece because our animal is not in pieces. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a decoration on his beak and show that I would color in this bottom part of the beak. Later I'll go back over it with my black crayon to make it dark and stand out. As I'm looking at my flamingo, I feel like he needs to be extended on the edge, so I'm just going to make an adjustment and erase my line to make it go a little bit higher up on my paper. You don't have to do that. I also want to show some of the texture of his feathers, so I'm making some little loops or scales or scallops going through this part of my bird so that my flamingo looks like he is actually feathered. Later on, I will trace over these with the black crayon to really make them stand out as well. I'm going to add a little scarf to the neck of my flamingo by just creating some lines going across and a little bit of a curved line and another one following the same pattern, going again and one parallel to it to connect. Now, you don't have to do this, but I wanted to dress up my flamingo to make him look like he is hanging out outside in the winter, which is kind of a funny thing for a flamingo because they like warmer weather. I'm also going to give him a little Santa hat so that I can hang this on my fridge or look a little festive. If you do not want to make yours Christmas-like, please do not worry about that. You can add a funny little top hat on him or anything extra you want to add onto your flamingo. Maybe you're going to give it some eyelashes and make it look like a girl flamingo or a fancy pearl necklace. You decide and get creative with this in your own way. Now I'm ready to color my picture, and I like to begin by outlining mine. If you're going to outline in black, however, wait to outline in black so that it doesn't make your other colors look too dark when it smears together. I'm going to color it in, and then I will show you the finished project and what our next part is. Once I've finished coloring my flamingo, I'm going to cut it out. Be careful not to cut your scarf off or anything else. If you do happen to cut it off, you can always glue it back together once we glue it onto our background paper. When you're gluing him, you have to make sure that you're putting the glue on the back in small dots, and then you need him to line up at the very bottom of your paper so that it doesn't look like part of your bird is missing. Bird looks like he blends in with the background, so I'm going to switch him out and put him on this green background that I have. Hopefully you created your background with a different color where your flamingo will stand out. Now I'm going to turn him over and put just a few dots of glue, a couple on the edges, up and around, and of course on any ends that you have, especially like the tip of his hat. You really don't need to use probably more than 10 dots. And then you flip them over, and you're going to press him down and hold it down to make sure that it sticks. Don't use a ton of glue and make a big mess. I've lined him up at the bottom, and now I'm pressing him down to make sure he sticks really well. Here is my finished flamingo. I can't wait to see what your winter animal and flamingo looks like.